This is the second BNFM Beach Boys sales podcast. And just for the team, what we're doing is it's 7:46 on a Sunday evening. Austin's got his daughters in bed, and we are so passionate about the sales organization being successful that we want to make sure we take some time every week or two to go through this podcast and maybe cover some things, and then worst case or best case, create some questions for the sales organization where maybe they want to follow up with us. So the topic today is because as we spoke about on the last session, guys, I wanted to start from the beginning, like training. So, and I'll preempt this and then ask you guys questions. We obviously have a couple aspects of, we have pre-training, which there's a 10-day checklist for pre-training. People are supposed to learn their talk tracks 90%. Not everybody does that. You guys
No.
can.
No, they don't.
Not everybody does that, yet they sometimes get to come to training anyway. And then there is, university itself. And then Hayden's obviously in charge of that right now. And I'm sure Hayden will mention a few things about university. And then there's post-training. And one of the things that's on my mind, and then I'll open it up to you guys to talk about it, is my biggest concern right now with the sales organization is the following. I think we're hyper-focused on the pre-training, assuming we hire them in time. I think they get a great education at university with Hayden and Todd, and soon to be this year, Hayden and the RSMs that help Hayden. My biggest concern is the accountability of post-training, because just because you go to university doesn't mean you know anything. What does happen, and maybe I'll start here. I think what does happen is people do exactly what we tell them, maybe for the first 30 to 90 days until they get into the field. And then to me, sitting in my chair, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of people aren't practicing their talk track and working on their craft beyond that in many cases. So, Cam, I'm going to start with you. What is your feeling about, I guess, what are you seeing in the field over the last 12 months? They come out of university, and maybe broad strokes, they come out of university, what happens? They're in the field 90 to 120, what happens? And for those that maybe you can go like, who makes it, who doesn't?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, over the last 12 months we've had the best strides pre and post university that we've had, and just really overall consistency because of the structure that we have in place with Anna Walski pre-training and making sure that people should be getting onboarded 3 weeks before they come to training. So
Okay.
that's been fun to see. And I know Hayden can attest that, especially over the past year, we've had more, I should say we've had less people at university not knowing what they're doing. Everybody, for the most part, came prepared, and we've done a good job. It's true. You need to come in to university with the talk track drilled into your head. We say 100%. I mean, just so that way, before you even get there, you're not worried about skipping a beat on the talk track. Have it 100% ready to go. But we've got, I'm thinking of a couple people in particular who I know took university extremely seriously this year, who we hired this year, and they're doing well. So I won't call anybody out by name, but I know that myself and the RSMs have noticed that even if you are perfect at your talk track, and after 60 days in the field, you need to fine tune. No matter how perfect your talk track was for that 3 weeks before you got to university and throughout university, even if you won, 60 days later, something happens. And it's almost like, we always I like to use sports analogies, but to not practice your talk track 60 to 90 days out, or just consistently in general, is like not shooting free throws to practice. It's crazy. So,
if anyone plays golf, it's like not warming up before you swing a golf club and expecting to do well or pick your sport,
Yeah, 100%.
Well, do you think, and whoever wants to take this, Hayden, you can take it, or Austin, but do you think that a lot of what happens is people get out into the field, and we're trying to work more on a real cold call even after university. We're trying to work with them, but do you think, it's kind of like strategy. They say that strategy in a boxing match is great until you get punched in the face. And I think what happens is they go into the field, they get punched in the face, and they start to change
Exactly what happens.
the things that work 90. Look, the talk track works, 80, 90% of the time. It's not 100% of the time. It works the majority of the time. It's like Sex Panther. 60% of the time, it works every time.
Exactly.
So, but I think people start to change words because of one person that was maybe mean to them. And all of a sudden, they change a few words and a few other words change. And 60 days later, if they don't practice or go back to the beginning, maybe it ends up being some other talk track. Are you guys seeing that in the
It's a
field?
super important point, because everyone's not very good in their first 60 days. They might be good salespeople, but they're thinking about the next word instead of having it memorized more often than not, right? More often than not, they don't have it memorized backwards and frontwards, where we could, give them 7 tequila shots and they would know the talk track by heart regardless. So you don't have it memorized perfectly. Then you get, a nice uppercut, and then you deviate from something that you never actually committed to. That's that's my 2 cents. I think that's what happens more often
How
than not.
long do you think, Hayden, I'll make you answer this one so everybody's talking.
All right.
How long do you think it takes somebody to be good at this?
To be good at the talk track or the sales process, or just
All of it.
all of it? I mean, I know what it came down to, like, let's say the ramp right now we have is 3 to 4 months. I think that's a pretty good time frame for how long it takes you to get pretty good at this and know the flow. And I think that's a pretty good time frame.
So you're saying 3 to 4 months for people to be semi-effective.
Correct.
And that's semi-effective if they do everything exactly according to plan.
Mm-hmm.
So in sales, there's, you're consciously competent, and then you want to be eventually unconsciously competent when you don't think about anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're consciously competent, and then you're unconsciously competent. How long do you guys, I don't care who takes it, how long do you think it takes to be unconsciously competent at this?
I'll jump in and say 9 months.
Okay.
I was thinking that, or a year.
Yeah, roughly a year mark. And, there's a lot that changes after the year. And really the 18-month mark is the true jump off point that we've seen from people who go from good performers to great performers as well. So something also happens after that 18-month point. And a lot of that has to do with follow-up. I did want to make a point.
Wait, hold on. What do you mean? A lot of that has to do with follow-up. Explain.
Good point. So a lot of it has to do with if you're collecting 20 to 50 cards every day for 18 months, as you should be, you at that point, usually around the 18-month point, know your territory forwards and backwards. And not only that, contacts, and you've met with enough people who you were consistently following up with, that eventually people will call you back. It's not if, but when. So there hits a point where roughly around the 18-month mark where you have enough in your pipeline for free trials, and you have enough people that you've already met with, that you've just kind of got this fun, constant motion of touching base with people that are in different stages, or customers that are in different stages. And then you'll get that one or two that reach out or when you reach out, who say, yes, we're finally ready. And that comes with time. And
that comes with, and you're talking 18 months to sort of make the follow-ups work, about a year to be unconsciously competent. Hayden's saying maybe 9 months or a year. Maybe you said 9 months and he said a year. Austin, what do you think? How long did it take you to be in the field and not be sort of going through the steps in your head pre walking into the account, when you're in the account, and then when you're sort of breaking it down in the car after you get back in the car?
Just if I had to look at it through simply knowing the talk track and just knowing what words to say.
We'll call it the talk track and the sales process both.
Right. Well, this important distinction because the talk track was like less than a month. I was so neurotic about making sure that I knew the words that that wasn't the hard part for me. The hard part for me was just not having a ton of sales experience and kind of touching the stove a couple different times, a couple different ways, because not every scenario is the same. So on the sales side, I think I'm on the same page as Cam and Hayden. It really could be 6 months. It could be faster if someone is a well seasoned salesperson and they take the talk track seriously. But we all were not well seasoned. We were all 22, 23 coming out of school. So we were figuring out this kind of sales process from scratch.
And
So
I
if
think
you're
it's
somebody who's, got some, you have experience and you're still coachable, it's actually faster.
I
That's
think
my two
it's
cents.
important to note too, Austin, whenever we were starting out with something that we always did, and I know probably a lot of our higher performers hopefully are doing, but just because I feel like it's important that people get some good tips on this podcast more than anything. But I know we live in in the information era where, like this, for instance, you can listen to podcasts, you can listen to music, but there's nothing more effective than you can do in the car than for the half hour before your meeting, no music, go over the talk track and go over just kind of like role playing with yourself of what the customer could say based on their current who they're currently using, conversations you've already had with them, knowing if they're going to be combative, and just being like you would think that we were crazy, Austin, but you and I both did it constantly, and we're going. You taught me how to do that, but just half hour before meeting, turn off the music, go over the scenarios out loud, and go over your talk track constantly to the point where when you go in, you've already said everything 8 times in a row and you've gone over 16 scenarios that could happen from an objection standpoint, and you're just that much more prepared. And it's fun to walk out of that meeting and go, oh, he only hit me with 4 of the 16 I was thinking about. It's pretty good. Got a
Yeah,
demo.
you have to know the words. You also have to know what slide corresponds with those words because people are visual and we have a visual presentation, right? So you got to pair those two things up. But 100%, I don't think I talked to my girlfriend at the time or made a phone call to a friend for the first 90 days of like starting because I was so, again, at that point in time, the business was so young, it was like sell or die. So just maybe not the healthiest arrangement, but it the
Well,
more
I
serious you
don't.
take it, the
I
better off you'll
think.
be.
I think. I mean, if you're going to learn anything, Malcolm Gladwell talks about 10,000 hours,
Hmm.
and I think the 10,000 hour rule applies to anything. And you've got to be unbalanced and neurotic to be successful at anything for a short period of time, to have the balance for a longer period of time. Uh, so I think you have to be imbalanced in the beginning in order to be unconsciously competent
Mhm.
at some stage in the game down the road.
I want to say there's one, I'm glad you brought that up because there's one, you're talking about sales process and how long until you're unconsciously competent. It is 3 to 5 years when you're talking about walking into a 40 or 50 unit deal that could net you $20,000 and not having butterflies and not having commission breath. It does take that long to handle those rare scenarios that you don't see every day. You might see those after the first year once a quarter.
Okay. So, Hayden, how infuriating is it then when we're sitting here talking? I've been in this space for 21 years. Austin's been in the space for 10 years. Cam's been in the space for 10 years. Well, you guys actually longer because of one source, right? You guys have been doing it longer even than that. And Hayden, you've been in the space almost your entire life. How infuriating is it with you when people walk into university and want to tell you about how they would do it or what their thoughts are?
I get that. I do get it a lot, and I've gotten pretty good at putting it to bed early. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Where because my whole thing is I don't want to absolutely dismiss them. What I do is I say, look, I hear you, but we have 20 years worth of data that says this works. And people that say the same phrase you're saying, which is they're going to try it their way, they only work here for about 4 months.
Yeah.
So I would
Amen.
suggest you listen.
So, and 4 months is kind of a magic number, right? Because they sort of do what we tell them to do begrudgingly in the beginning. They go back to what they think they should be doing. 90, 120 days they're into it, and they're obviously not doing the activity. generally people doing it their other way has a lot to do with them creating activity that it has nothing to do with them working hard.
Yeah. I was going to say, and if there's anybody who's listening right now, who's in that position, who has their own way, and they're currently looking at the board, and it's towards the end of the month, and you have $65 in RMR and one demo, it's not too late. Hopefully, go back, do the process, and don't overcomplicate this. That's the easiest advice that I could ever give. Don't overcomplicate this.
Get in front of 20 people a day, grab a couple of cards, or set a couple of meetings, and try to put yourself in a position to, do intro meetings to get free trials. I mean, it's just and by the way, the more you do that, the better you get, and the better you get, the higher your close rate goes, and it all sort of starts with that activity up front.
Some of our most consistent reps on the team are the ones who, ironically, have some of the worst technological background, and it's just because they understand. Love you, Randy Bauer, if you're listening to this.
Activity.
But I know for a fact that you do everything in person. You do everything pulling cards, calling people, doing it the, I guess, quote unquote, old fashioned way, which works the best. It does.
So Randy has,
happy anniversary, Randy, 10-year.
His 10-year anniversary. He's had said out loud he's making more money than he ever thought he'd ever make, which is wonderful. And what I love about Randy is he's been in his territory for a long period of time, and so he sort of knows everything about the businesses that he's walking into. I would tell you, when I got into sales, this thing called the internet did not exist. How amazing is it 5-10 minutes before you go into a call to read about the company you're about to call
on? Oh, huge.
How amazing is that? And how ridiculous is it that people don't read about the company they're about to see when they walk in to talk to them? Because what's everybody's favorite topic? Themselves.
Yep.
So let's ask, between LinkedIn and the internet, I can look about 3 things about the person. I can look about the company. I can walk in and just ask a bunch of questions about them and the business. They're going to think I'm the world's greatest conversationalist because I'm just asking about them. And then what happens when you ask about them? They want to know what you do.
Yeah, exactly. They want to know.
Well, they automatically like you because they're doing all the talking.
I really like that guy. He's such a good conversationalist. And once they got rolling and you asked them a few questions, they spoke 90% of the time. So I'm just amazed. And it's been a minute since I would teach university like Hayden and then go do the first ride day with people. But I'm still amazed. Even today, when I'm hearing stories about they're walking in and they don't know anything about the company or the person they're calling on, when everything's in a computation device that used to fit in, when I was a kid, 6 rooms, now fits in your hand and you can get this information. And at worst case, now with AI, you can say, hey, ChatGPT, give me a quick rundown on who I'm about to call on. And it'll do that. I mean, so to not do that is a little scary, right? It's just a little scary not to come in and almost be like, you should almost be like a groupie or a fan of the person you're calling on. Because if you know 3 or 4 things about them, either personally or the business, how can they not like you?
It's 15 minutes of prep makes the difference between someone making 100 and 200.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just actually makes you be a really good conversationalist. So are you guys seeing that in the field? When you're going on people with ride days, are they actually going in and not knowing? I mean, be honest with me. It's okay. Are the reps you're riding with, do they know what's going on with that person when they walk into that intro meeting, or have they done their homework?
Yeah. I mean, it's a great topic because I'd say it's like probably 50-50, 50-50 on, I hope that most reps are at least just doing a dive into the company to understand the company, what they do, what other locations there potentially could be, and then if they have any sustainability goals.
Mm-hmm.
And if
That
the person's on
alone,
LinkedIn, right? You can pick up, and if they're on LinkedIn, they might be on Facebook. I mean, you
yeah,
can pick
if
up a
the
few
if the
things.
individual, I know that there's a lot of people on our team, high performers, that anytime they set a meeting with somebody, they'll send them a LinkedIn friend request, because at that point it's like, hey, you're establishing a relationship. And so now they get to understand the business maybe a little bit more before you meet with them, because they click on a couple links on
Now
your.
that's a tidbit, Cam.
It is.
That's a little hack right there that I'm not
Yep.
sure everybody's doing.
Do
That
it. Do it.
It's an easy just do it. So I don't know, Austin. Were you researching up to a couple of years ago? You're in the field pretty consistently, right? Were you researching people before you showed up?
Yeah, I definitely had meetings where I was more prepared and my talk track was much worse for one reason or another. Just didn't click with that person, but because I was prepared, that deal actually came to fruition. Whereas other times, I walked in uh, with an amazing talk track unprepared, and more often than not, I wouldn't win those deals. But I'll tell you the thing almost more as important as knowing the person you're meeting with is knowing that company and their competitors, and specifically the competitors that you can kind of frame your business to be on the same side as them.
Great
So,
topic.
like, yeah. So, for example, if at the time, for Office H2O, we were a smaller company, so we would I would do research on somebody and try to find a much bigger competitor to that company in their space. And if they started talking about price and beating up on us on price, I would kind of plug how we're like you, and this other company that you're going to bid us out is just like ABC company that might get their steel from China, so they're going to be cheaper, but it's not the same quality of product, right? And that little bit of information makes the right person, a decision maker, go, you're right. For in our world, $15 a month isn't going to make or break us.
So you try to draw an analogy they can understand based on the industry they're in, most likely to be used when they give you an objection that makes no sense. Like,
Correct.
we don't sign agreements, and yet everything they do is with an agreement.
Car dealerships, we don't sign agreements. What?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Yeah. Yeah. But you've got to be able to draw that analogy and be prepared for that. So back to preparation, these are things you have to be able to neurotically practice in your mind before you walk in, right? What if they say this? What if they say that? I got to know the person a little bit. I got to know the industry a little bit. What are some things if they get talk about price or term or anything weird? What industry what's their industry? How do I have that kind of that bullet ready in case they want to go down a path that doesn't make any sense? So, Hayden, do
Yep.
you have an example of when you've done some prep? Maybe give two examples, but one where you've prepped and it's
Mm-hmm.
gone well. How did you prep? And maybe one you didn't, but let's go with one that
Yeah.
you did.
One that I prepped, I go through a lot where like a psycho, talking to myself in the car, going over rebuttals, but also going up. There was a company in Franklin that I knew we aligned with from a sustainability standpoint when I looked it up, and meeting with somebody that's health and safety as I researched a little more. I went in with that knowledge that that's the angle I'm taking this, because I knew they had simple filter coolers that they weren't paying that much for. You
Right?
have to justify them, upping their price, their spend. If they have 2 units, they're paying $30 a pop. And, I'm doing the TDS test and a lot of what's, what we're supposed to do, but also taking the angles of from a sustainability standpoint. Here's what we do. Here's the direction we're heading. And that is probably a better example of, that really clicked with that person. I'd say an example of wrong prep would be in the early days, walking in and, oh, sure, I'll meet with this purchasing individual and do no research on this company and we'll see how it goes. And then 10 minutes in going, oh my God, this is not going well at all. How do I get how do I get myself out of this hole?
Right.
Yep.
Because professional purchasing people are taught to sit there stone faced and ask you for price and to say no.
Mm-hmm.
So, right. So if
Right.
you walk into that hardcore 30-year purchasing person you've all three called on, right? Like hardcore. And if you could walk in and know that they're in a bowling league and that they really are a big IU fan, and you know three or four things about the company, and you can lead with those questions before you ever talk about you,
Mm-hmm.
all the guards come down, all the
Yeah.
info comes out, right?
Funny thing about actually that in particular, I did use for Dick's Sporting Distribution Center. When my first LTA I closed, I went on Facebook and I looked up my contact and saw that he was the world's biggest Ohio State fan. And
Hmm.
I knew that that weekend, Ohio State had a huge game. It was Ohio State, Michigan that was coming up. And as soon as we were walking out, I was like, "Hey, any big plans this weekend?" He was like, "Yeah, just I'm just gonna watch the game." I was like, "Ohio State game, right? You've got to be an Ohio State fan because I'm the world's biggest Ohio State fan." And I did a bunch of Ohio State research because I was just like, I got to connect with the guy. And he was like, "Yes, the Ohio State game. I'm going to it." So we talked about it for a while, and that ultimately got me the demo. I'm convinced.
But you're still friends with him, right?
I mean, we still connect for sure.
Yeah. So that's cool, though. You took an interest in order to,
Yep.
right? I mean, it's
I am
part of
not the
what we.
world's biggest Ohio State fan, but I respect them.
I know we are not
Just for
Ohio
everybody
State.
listening.
That's right. For anybody listening, but that's just a great point. You connected on a human level, and then
Yep.
we're absolutely the best product for them. We're the best service provider for them. So if we have to connect in order to earn trust and credibility, that's what we have to work on. And I
I'm
find
prepared.
that we've had some hardworking people on the team over this last year, who just didn't have the ability to connect. And I just wonder if could they have connected maybe if they used a few of these techniques. Like I just asked the question: Are you? People aren't going to see these podcasts until after kickoff, but as people start to get their year rolling in 2026, are you prepared for every meeting you walk into? Do you know something personally about them and about the business? And are you ready to connect on a, just a human level for a while, and then start to talk about, kind of what we do, which is all part of the, the warm up questions, right? So you can, if you're good at that warm up part of this process, a lot of it becomes much easier on the back end.
Dad, I got a
Absolutely.
question for you.
Sure.
So we'll play a scenario out
Okay.
because we're trained to a good salesperson walks in and you try to find something to draw a connection to, something on the wall, something on their desk, anything you can to just get the conversation going. You walk into a purchasing person, robot, not a thing on the wall, not a thing on the desk, and they are cold to say the least.
Right.
What are the first couple questions you're trying to ask them to just get them to talk about
Well,
anything?
this is my point: is when I was in my most prolific sales years, we did not have the internet, LinkedIn, or Facebook. So if there's a blank wall there and I've done no research, it's a really hard scenario.
You're looking
Um,
around the room.
you're just
Well,
looking
that's what I'm
around.
saying. But in this scenario, the room is blank. So you
Oh,
have to connect with this person without any help. Because I know this happens. There are people that you'll go and meet with, and there's
My first
no help.
my first question to that person is, uh, and again, I can't appear like a dumbass, so I'm not going to say what does the company do, because obviously I'm going to know that walking in. But I'm just going to quite simply say, how long have you been here? What did you do before this? I'm just going to ask them about their background. And I'm just going to keep asking questions about who they are and their background until they answer a few questions. But I'm going to turn it on them. It's nothing about business. It's about how long have you been here? You know, um, if they're in purchasing, which or some sort of a accounts It just depends. Facilities management or purchasing. I'm going to ask how long they've been in that space. How did they get interested in it? Where did they go to school? Is this their first gig, second gig? And I'm going to be very interested in their background.
I knew you were going to say that, and I wanted to make sure we led people down that path because I not everyone does that. And I'm, from a value add standpoint, you could be in the middle of a meeting and it's not going well, and it's okay to deviate from the talk track to build rapport in the middle of the meeting. Some people, we
Absolutely.
teach the process a certain way, and they think that rapport building's in the beginning, and then you go into pitch, and if your pitch is not going well, that you have to keep pushing, even though that's
Part of the
lunacy.
reason why you get up and go see the cooler, keep that conversation going. Don't talk about, don't keep talking about work if they don't want to talk
Right.
about work during that time period. Keep connecting with them. And then when you get to the cooler, go back in. But yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do, was always to get the contact up and moving, because people are more likely to, actually open up if they're in motion, not sitting behind in a conference room, another one of these vendor meetings. It's like, let's go look around,
Yep.
so.
One of the reasons I'm so proud of you boys, there's lots of reasons, but in this space particularly, all three of you um, were willing to be bad until you were good. Like you were willing to really kind of not be very good at it.
I had some very bad appointments in the beginning.
I did
Very
too.
bad.
Right?
So bad.
And I think everybody thinks that because we are who we are, that it just went well. And there was just some horrible meeting. It's worth being bad. I was talking to somebody over the weekend about golf, and I'm like, when I really got serious about golf and really kept my score in 2020, I was a 26 handicap. I'm now a 13. That's 5 painful years. Like 5 painful years, because you don't play every day. You play a couple times a week if you're lucky, of just being bad until you pick up a few things and a few things and a few things and a few things and a few things. And I think that's the way this is as well. But if there is a hack, all of you were all personable enough to make a friend and then sort of walk them through the sales process. And I want to make sure we don't miss that with folks, right? Because I do
100%.
remember all of you being in the beginning and it just kind of laughing, because I'm like, they're going to laugh at how bad they are right now, a year from now and 2 years from now. You're just going to, and the things that you tried to shortcut or skip or avoid, and then now you're like, oh, why did I do that?
Well, I
Yeah.
remember having thoughts that, is this what I want to do with my life at 6 months in? And it wasn't because the product isn't amazing or the process. It was because there's a certain level of work you have to do, unrelenting,
Right.
until it clicks. And then once it clicks, it's not easier, but you just get better at it. But yeah, I remember having that thought, being like, man, how long am I going to do this for? And it'd be this painful.
Mhm.
And then
Yeah.
it might have been 30 days later. I was like, oh, this is fun. I'm
And,
having fun.
and for everybody who might be in that position now and they're grinding it out, best advice Austin ever gave me early on was the best appointments are when you're talking about things not related to work for 80% of the time. So
Exactly.
And they're
if we're hiring
45
you,
minutes.
if we're hiring you, it means that you did a damn good job in the interview, at least connecting on a personal level, which means you are able to do that with pretty much anybody. And so make sure that you are just, at the end of the day, focus in on that, build relationships while you're sucking until you get better. At
And,
least at
and
that
by the
point, you
way,
can
if
have
you're
a
good
good
at building
relationship.
relationships, if you're not getting 3 job offers a month, you're not doing it right.
Very good point.
I'm serious. If you're doing it right, you're getting 3 job offers a month because they like you so much, and you haven't told them anything, but you're asking about them, right?
First summer, yeah, whenever we started this, first cold call I ever did, right at 8 a.m., 8 a.m. hit, got out of my car, Keystone at the Crossing in Indianapolis, went to the very first office, and I opened the door, and the guy goes, "Well, good morning. It's 8:01. We just opened. What's going on?" And I told him who I was, and he goes, "Do you want a job?" I go, "I just start. You're my first card that I'm pulling."
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah,
Meet
I
him.
remember having a talk with dad for my first internship doing sales 2 months in. And the first month went really well. Second month, not so much. And I told him, we talked on a Monday. I said, "Hey, tomorrow I have 7 appointments." You go, "Oh gosh, let me know how it goes." I walk in Wednesday and I went, "Well, I got one demo and the person was convinced before I even walked in the door. The other 6 people I talked to, it went terribly. Like I think I talked him out of it. I talked so much. So
That is a
and you
thing.
said, yeah,
That
you
is a
go,
thing.
let me hear it. And as I started talking, you're like, "Yeah, you're talking too much." You drew a graph. You're like, "Here's the thing. If you're getting them to talk more than you are and you're not over explaining things, your success is going to be here. As you start over elaborating, the more you might learn about this industry, it's going to start going back down. People don't need all four filters explained to them in full depth. A lot of them don't care
Well,
unless they ask."
once you become a water expert, you're automatically going to have to tell yourself to dumb it down after the first 6 months, because you will
Mhm.
absolutely create a sophomore slump for yourself. And the only thing you're doing differently is you're telling them how smart you are. So once again, you reverted from asking them questions because you don't know shit, right? You don't know anything. So now you're asking them questions to learn about their business. And then after a while, as you learn about the business, you become so smart, you want to tell them all you know first, and you become less effective. So it just has to always go back to them, right?
Mhm.
It's all about them. I was listening to a podcast the other day from Ed Milet's interviewing somebody, and the guy said this was great. And this is a good one for the salespeople. He said, you know, chasing your passion is great, but maybe proving you can be good at something and making money is probably the first priority. And then later,
Yeah.
this guy's very wealthy. He's like, these wealthy people saying, chase your passion. They're saying that after they're already rich. So when you're not, you need to be good at something so you can make some money so you have those choices. And honestly, I think that's the opportunity we do give people, right? I would be remiss if I thought that 100% of people that are with us today are going to be with us in 5 years. They're not all going to be here. I hope they are. I hope we can build it big enough that it's big enough that they can continue to grow with us and make a lot of money and have fun. But even if they don't, damn it, they need to be good at something for a year or two to prove they can make money. And then they can go chase something, they're more passionate about, right? I just thought it was very profound that this guy is like, I hate it when rich guys say chase your passion, because, in the beginning, you're not chasing your passion. You're trying to figure out if you're good at anything and what the discipline is to be good.
You should
So,
chase skill sets. You should be
Mhm.
trying to uh, earn as many skill sets as possible. And a little biased, but the number, because of the short sales cycle, this business gives you the ability to get really sharp quickly. And if someone one day wants to take a better opportunity, or they want to start their own thing or whatever they want to do, they're going to be good because they've had 10,000 meetings. And that's not how it works in most sales gigs.
well, when I got in the office equipment business, and I would still say the same thing for you guys today. If I was somebody coming out of college, and I'd say, and just say you're not a sustainability freak, you're not necessarily all about, the environment, but you're trying to find a way to make money and create some skill sets. I think we are the most wonderful opportunity in the world where you can feel good about the product that you sell and make a lot of money, only because you have to go call on a ton of people from all these other spaces and learn all about their businesses. So you can learn, like, killer at a cocktail party, because you can call on all these different industries and know a little bit about everything. And then maybe over time figure out that one of these industries is something you're really more passionate about. But you only get there by calling on a bunch of people
Yep.
that you've not met yet, right? So I love when people say, I'm just not sure this is for me. Well, what is for you? And the only ways you're going to find what's for you is to go out and meet a bunch of people in different spaces. This is a great way to get paid for that research, in my
Yeah.
opinion. So, anyway, we are 40 minutes into it, boys. Is there anything else you want to cover on this one? I think there's some cool tidbits in here, mostly revolving around, it sounds like, for all four of us. Let's spend some time getting to know people, doing the research, and sharpening our axe, our craft. And it's going to take, if you're new, a year, right? And you're
Yep.
going to be good at making friends. You might be a little robotic in the beginning. Over 6 months, you get a little more consciously competent, and then maybe a year later, it's more like breathing, right? But it's worth being bad to be good, and you do get paid along the way.
And if
So,
you're making good enough relationships, don't be above kind of making fun of yourself in front of the customer in order to humanize yourself. So I don't think enough people do that in the beginning when they're not very good, is humanizing themselves to the customer. And so that way they know in that moment, they're like, oh, this isn't just a rep. This is a guy who or a gal who's working their ass off and trying to perfect this craft. And I'm their audience right now. And in humanizing yourself as a rep, you're more likely to make that sale and a
yeah,
friend. So
amen.
I think it's
Austin?
important to point out part of that. You're right, Cameron. And this was my. I'm curious what you guys did because I can only tell you what I did. I talked about personal things in my life, not too personal, but like if I met with somebody, and whether they were a customer or not, they knew my girlfriends that I had brothers that were in college and that wanted to join the business with me, and that I had a girlfriend, and that I was trying to find a space to live on the north side somewhere, and I was a transplant from Shelbyville. Like they knew enough about me that if I left, and then they called me back, I was memorable to them. I wasn't just another sales guy. I had given them some level of like insider information on my life that they felt like they were connected to me. And I'm not sure everyone does that. I'm not sure I think we do, but I'm not sure everybody kind of peels the onion back with the customer and tells them things about them.
good thing to end on. I like
Yep.
that right there.
Hayden, anything you want to end on?
No, as soon as Cameron said humanizing yourself, it was last year I got a 10 cooler deal because I walked in bright and early Thursday morning and accidentally said happy Friday. And the guy thought it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. And I was just sitting there like, I'm an idiot. I'm so sorry. And so now every once in a while I'll sprinkle that in, and it hits every time. And it's a good way to kind of be like, especially for like a 8 a.m. appointment where I drove an hour to get there, just walk in and just, oh, happy Friday. Sorry. Got a little ahead of myself. Then little things like that can go a long way to get people to kind of something that can break the ice really helps.
Yep. Anything to be
I,
memorable, right?
I have one question that kind of ties to like where we started with this conversation, which is pre-training and university and going and making sure that you continue to practice afterwards.
Practice.
Okay, let's talk about the top 10% that leave university. How quickly, when someone leaves university, do they establish that they are a stone cold killer? Like how long does it take for us to know, for like all of us to look at them and go that they got it? How long does it take?
6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're talking about, how long does it take for someone to be unconsciously competent? I think it's important to also point out that people can
People can go
establish in the
faster.
first 6 weeks. Oh yeah.
Let me ask you this question though: of those people that proved they were stone cold killers in the first 6 to 8 weeks, how many of them fell off the wagon for a minute before they got back on track? How many?
100%.
100% of them.
95. Yeah.
Right? So the stone cold killers, and you guys were all those people too. The first 8-10 weeks, you did exactly everything we told you to do at university, and it worked so well you stopped doing it. You change a word here and there, you start to skip steps, and those stone cold killers all have this little slump or they talk too much because they know too much about water, or they just skip steps because they got the kiss of death, a one call close, or a direct agreement, as people call it on GroupMe now, which makes me crazy. So, but they get them too early, and they don't know how to deal with it. So they think they've learned the magic shortcut that nobody told them about at training until they want to
Or
throw
an
themselves
LTA.
off a bridge
Yeah.
4 months or 4 weeks later. So, anything else you guys want to cover? We were 46 minutes into it. We're shorter than last time. It was 52. But we're going to continue. So this one was more about training and continuing to hone your craft. And I think it really morphed into a really good conversation about why relationship building on the front end, especially if you've got this in your hand with LinkedIn, Facebook, and any information about somebody's company, you should go in guns a-blazing, just trying to make a friend, and then get into your talk track you're going to continue to perfect. So
I do think there's one last thing I'll say, and I'll quit
you're good
rambling.
at extended meetings. Go ahead.
Well, try to provide value, but I'm just thinking about we teach about the beginning process, right? Connect with somebody, humanize yourself, the whole 9 yards. I don't know if people do this, but I hope that after these meetings are done, whether you got a free trial or not, that they are studying film and decompressing and going back through all the things that were said. No, I said this here, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have done this instead.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to just try to, that was a terrible meeting, let me just try to forget about it. No. You have to go back through it and figure, why did it go off the rails? It's, if someone played sports, that should be pretty in tune for them, but not everyone did. But that's something that I feel like we did a good job.
Film after every one of your varsity basketball games, boys?
Quickly as we could. I mean, next couple days, whenever it came out.
Yeah, whenever we could get it on DVD.
Cam and I would talk after hours every day about the meetings we had, and it wasn't like, it's this big of opportunity, it's this much money. It was like, no, this guy did this seemed to be important to him, and I had one of those too. This word seemed to work for this kind of department, and that after hours collaboration, whether it's with your regional manager or a supervisor or a friend, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Or my favorite, the Tommy Boy, stupid, so stupid. Just going over all the things you said that didn't work, that ruined a meeting.
All right, guys.
Plenty of those.
Well, this has been great. Thanks for taking your Sunday evening to help the sales team at Bottomless Nation get better. Hopefully somebody will enjoy this in their car or whenever they get a chance if they want to watch it. And they'll have more questions about either the relationship building or continuing to hone their craft. So have a great evening. Love you guys. See you.
Have a good night.
Yeah.
Love you too.
Bye.
See you.